大家好，欢迎收看本期世界图书馆馆长访谈。2017年5月，恰逢亚洲及大洋洲地区图书馆馆长会议在北京召开，我们很荣幸地采访到了国际图联主席多纳希德女士。国际图联的全称是国际图书馆协会与机构联合会，它的英文简称是 IFLA。国际图联是一个独立的非政府性的国际组织，它的主要目的是促进国际图书馆界、信息界相互理解、交流、合作、研究和发展，并且在国际事务中代表着图书馆界的利益。国际图联是全世界图书馆界最具权威、最有影响力的专业性的国际组织。国际图联与其他重要的国际组织保持着良好的关系。国际图联享有联合国观察员的资格，同时也是联合国教科文组织的 A 级顾问机构，是世界知识产权组织的观察员。国际图联成立于1927年，迄今为止已有90年的时间了。它拥有来自全世界140多个国家的1400多名会员，包括协会会员、机构会员和个人会员。国际图联的权力机构叫做管理委员会，下设行政委员会和专业委员会。这个行政委员会又叫执行委员会。执行委员会主要负责的是国际图联的全面运营的工作，而专业委员会负责国际图联各项学术活动。管理委员会的成员呢，包括了国际图联主席、后任主席和16位委员。这些人都是通过国际图联的会员大会选举出来的。特别值得一提的是，中山大学的图书馆馆长陈焕文教授在2017年成功地当选了国际图联管理委员会的委员，任期2年，成为了该届委员会唯一的中国籍委员。国际图联的日常工作由秘书处来负责，秘书处位于荷兰海牙的皇家图书馆，那么这里呢也是国际图联的总部所在地。国际图联大会每年举办一次，由会员国来承办。那么每年的8月或者9月初的时候呢，我们可以看到它在世界不同的国家举行。这些会议给图书馆界的人士提供了一个平等交流沟通的重要的平台。到目前为止国际图联大会已经成功举办了83届。那么最近的一届呢，刚刚在波兰的弗罗茨瓦夫落下帷幕。很荣幸，我作为同传翻译也参与了这次大会。中国是国际图联的创始国之一。1927年9月30日，在英国图书馆协会成立50周年的庆祝大会上，中国和英美等14个国家的图书馆代表共同倡议，并通过表决正式宣布成立国际图联。然而，由于历史的原因，在很长一段时间里，中国和国际图联中断了联系。随着中国在联合国及联合国教科文组织合法地位的恢复，80年代初，国际图联和中国又取得了联系。国际图联承认中国图书馆学会为唯一代表中国的协会成员，至此，中国正式重返国际图联。那么，中国第一次举办国际图联大会是在1996年，这也是在北京举行的第62届国际图联大会。我们这次采访到的国际图联主席多纳希德女士是来自美国的，她毕业于美国乔治城大学，曾在美国久负盛名的国会图书馆工作长达45年的时间。在此期间，他主要负责国会的信息服务工作。他引入了一系列的创新举措，比如说开设了第一个法律文献博客，还有引入了国会的电子文献平台。 多纳希德女士在国际图联管理委员会担任委员长达8年，2015年当选为国际图联主席，任期2年。接下来，让我们来收看访谈，让我们随着国际图联主席多纳希德女士的视角，一起了解国际图联。We all know that IFLA is the leading international body representing the library and the information services. And every year IFLA will host many conferences, and the ongoing conference here, the Conference of Directors of National Libraries in Asia and Oceania, is also under the framework of IFLA and hosted by IFLA. So my first question is, what's the objectives of this conference? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, actually, CDNL, which is short for the Directors of National Libraries, is independent of IFLA, but partners with us. And I can say that what's the most important thing, the heads of national libraries are very important leaders in their countries. Every librarian looks to their national library for guidance. And I think what this conference does at a regional basis is to connect those library leaders more closely and to help them, to provide a platform to get them to be able to cooperate and help each other. Because in any region of the world, there's a great diversity in how National Library is viewed, the amount of resources it gets, the expectations of the people that it serves. And so the services can be different and can be at a different level. And meetings like this help leaders trade best practices, find ways to help each other where resources might not exist in one place. A library that has them might be able to do some sharing. So it's all about strengthening all the libraries in that region through cooperation.
Yes. So basically this conference is a platform for information sharing and resources sharing, right?
Yes, and also it's a place where there's only one national library in every country, and so it's hard. You don't have a peer group in your country. You don't. It's the same. I came out of the Libraries and Research Services for Parliaments group. There's only one parliamentary library in every country. So when you get together and with your colleagues that are in the same job that you are in a different country, it's possible to share many things when you don't have a colleague in your own country to share with. Yeah. So it's very important too in terms of just sometimes the inspirational support you get from each other.
Can you share with us some background of the conference? For example, how to organize the over 20 countries, libraries, directors here?
Well, I think, a very good job was done by the National Library of China. It was an excellent day today, and that comes from preparation and working and discussing with your colleagues what it is that they want to discuss in addition to the things that are normally on the agenda, and also colleagues volunteering to talk about some of the major new things that are going on and things that they are doing, or cooperative projects. So this afternoon's presentations from New Zealand and Korea and the National Library of China all talked about opportunities that they have seized upon to do new things, and hopefully has spurred some of the other libraries to think, how can we cooperate too? Maybe what can we do with this other group that we work with closely? So it's all about sharing ideas, but for the purposes of inspiration and doing, because it's. I said today in my opening remarks, just talking about things, it's idle talk. You have to do something. You know, you can't just discuss problems or trends or challenges. you have to take action. And so what this conference is all about is people sharing the actions that they're taking, and hopefully some of that resonates with others, and they will be able to get some new ideas about how to overcome the challenges that they have.
Yes, so I think this is a very important opportunities for each countries to exchange their ideas.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And you know, we know that you are the president of IFLA, and you must be very familiar with the organization of IFLA.
Yes.
So can you introduce IFLA to our Chinese librarians, especially the young ones?
I think there's two things to understand about IFLA. Number one, we're in a globalized world, an increasingly globalized world. And in the old days, it would be possible to do your job as a librarian and never have to worry about what was going on in any other country. But now you don't have to worry about, but it's an opportunity to work with others. Many wonderful projects are happening where librarians from different countries around a subject, like the Biodiversity Library, are sharing their resources on a common website around a topic. And what IFLA does is help convene around practice connections, or types of libraries, or types of functions in libraries, experts from different countries around the world, which are standing committees, who put together these programs and try to convene librarians who are interested in that around these issues and coming up with great ways to meet these challenges. So in many ways, IFLA is a collection of individual, over a couple thousand experts in different practice areas of librarianship, and who help each other. And they may meet at an annual conference, but the connections happen all year long. It's helping to connect the field globally. The other thing IFLA does is advocacy for libraries, particularly at the global level. So if you know about the Marrakesh Treaty for making it possible for libraries to make copies of things in Braille, for example, to help people with disabilities, that's the work of IFLA at the World Intellectual Property Organization meetings, WIPO, and it took 10 years. And it's not easy, but this is what we do, is to try to forge a consensus among countries and states to come up with a treaty that will be beneficial to libraries and the people that they serve.
Can you tell us what's the headquarters of IFLA? And
I'm sorry, what?
Headquarters.
Oh, headquarters. The headquarters of IFLA is in The Hague, but more importantly, IFLA is really trying to be more in the regions now, and we have regional offices. The one for the Asia-Oceania region is in Singapore. We have one in all these different regions, which is to help particularly library associations, because some of the chief members of IFLA are the library associations. And through the library associations, programming kind of goes down to the grassroots level in every country. So the headquarters is in The Hague. There are a number of people headquartered there. Yes. But just as important are the regional offices of IFLA, which are in so Asia, Oceania, Africa, Europe, Latin America, and also we have one for the Arab-speaking countries as well. So we're trying to be where our members are and not make them come to us.
So IFLA emphasizes on the regional development of libraries.
Yes.
And then integrate them together.
Very good, yes. Excellent, yeah.
That would be very great for an international organization to do that.
You mentioned young librarians too. I think it's important. IFLA has a young professionals group, and it's a special interest group. It does a lot of programming. It has webinars. So it's making it possible for people to participate in IFLA, maybe not necessarily physically all the time, but virtually, and through this group of young professionals in different countries around the world. Yeah. So they do some very interesting work, and if there are young librarians watching this interview, I urge you to go to the IFLA website and check out the Young Professionals group, because I think you'll find some activities and some learning opportunities that may be of interest to you.
Yeah, you mentioned the digitalization, and we all know that with the rise of the internet and the social media, we find ourselves in the middle of information revolution, and that is exciting and also unsettling. But at the same time, we have shouldered the responsibility of inheriting the old traditions and safeguarding our cultures. So how should we balance the new technologies and the old cultures?
I would like to say that the part of the past that we will not let go of are the values of freedom of access to information for all, the things that are around human rights about accessing information, being champions of literacy, that everybody has a right to read and should read, because without reading you cannot participate in society in a meaningful way. So the values, there are certain values that unite librarianship. How we fulfill the mission is now different. You know, you mentioned culture. Preserving culture is very, very important. Yes. Digitization, though, allows us to do things to make culture more available. I was in Bulgaria last week, and they have wonderful things that the rest of the world would be really, going back to Roman times, that the rest of the world would be really interested in, and they're in the process of digitizing them. So by digitizing materials and using new technology, we're making the culture of countries much more available to people all over the world who are scholars, who are just curious, who may have their roots in that country but emigrated to someplace else. And so things that couldn't get themselves out of the library door can now fly around the world through digitization.
Through digitalization, the library
has no borders.
It's no traditional ones.
Yes.
And we can, through the online resources, to find, to research, and to make things more accessible to people.
And to allow people to understand more the culture of others.
Yes.
You know, right now, one of the big problems for the world, and it's a problem because of a lack of understanding, is migration. And many people are being driven out of their homes for one reason or another, either natural or man-made disasters like war. They're fleeing to other countries to find a better life. And it's really important, the work that libraries are doing, to make sure that the people in the receiving country can understand about this culture, and also that the people who are coming to this country understand more about the culture that they're coming to. And so we as librarians really have a unique role in uniting the world and making the world a place where people can get along, you know, and work and live and work together and embrace the diversity that's in their locality instead of being afraid of it.
Yeah. And what did IFLA do to embrace those challenges from internet?
Well, you know, that's one of the things. I mean, global policy, of course, copyright and digital materials, and has been a big issue, and that is something that we're working at the World Intellectual Property Organization on. But we also have our interest groups do a lot. For example, one of the issues right now is fake news. You know,
fake news.
Yes. And all of this alternative facts, as they've been called in my country. Yeah. And one of the things IFLA did was put together an infographic on how to spot fake news. Christiane Amanpour happened to use it on her show, and it became very popular. It's now been translated into 15 languages. It's up for libraries to download, and many libraries are doing classes for their patrons on information literacy and how to spot, fake news using this. So that's just one little example of something that's small, but that is done to support libraries who want to take on these very important issues. So IFLA does a lot of toolkits. We have standards that we set for different kinds of libraries or different kinds of library services. There's a whole variety of things, but what we're there to do is to support the libraries to do things themselves through things like toolkit standards, etc. And that's what's produced by our sections on various interest groups within IFLA, our communities of practice, if you want to use a knowledge management term. So we enable, I'd like to think what we do is we enable library professionals to address these challenges.
Apart from the challenges from the internet, what do you think, what's the other challenges or opportunities in the future for library circles?
Well, there's a lot of, I think one of the big challenges for and opportunities is the revolution in online learning. So with all of these massive MOOCs, massive online, whatever courses, forget that the
online lessons.
Yeah. This is really making it's democratizing education, and in my country, higher education is very expensive for a lot of people, and to be honest, employers don't care that much about degrees in many cases. Yes. And so people can go online. They can get courses in a wide variety of things, get the skills that they need to apply for jobs that they want. They can get degrees online, but what is the library supporting these people? So in many places, the public library is taking on the role of providing a place for the students to get together to discuss things, providing a place that provides library and research resources for people taking online courses, because academic libraries are not going to do this because they're not paying students. They only serve the paying students of that in many cases that university or college. So there's a big opportunity there. Another is the cost of textbooks. Yes. Many universities now are creating their own textbooks, and particularly by using open source resources and pulling things together so that the textbook, it's a virtual textbook. It's not published by any of the publishers. It doesn't cost $800 to buy it for a student, and it's online and it can keep growing. So there's a lot of examples around education and the education model, and I really don't think universities see the challenge yet. I think they think they're invincible, and their business model is being challenged just like newspapers were by digital publishing. And many other sectors of the economy that are being politics has been totally disrupted by the internet. So it's a really exciting time. But the people who I said this morning, that David Snowden, who's a really wonderful thinker and talks a lot around knowledge management and knowledge, said to us at my president's meeting that until you think differently about the past and the present, there is no future. Meaning that if we just go on looking at the ways we do things now and don't challenge them, don't think about them, we will get lost, and someone else will be creating the future, not us. You have to think differently in order to move ahead. And I think that probably is one of the most important things that we should all keep in mind. we have to challenge things. We have to think, we have to be creative. We have to think differently. And it's fun, Don't stop worrying about things changing because we have the power to change them to be the way we want them to be. That will be good for us and will be good for our libraries and good for our community. And that is what we absolutely have to do.
The libraries now have many innovative initiatives to improve their social education functions, like what you said, the online lessons. And I'm happily, I want to happily tell you that China and the National Library of China also have the online lessons. This is called the open courses. For the audience of Chinese, all Chinese.
Yay!
And I once surfed the internet and find a lot of valuable online courses, like the courses from the Harvard University. Yeah, and the TED, the TED.
TED Talks.
The TED Talks. I think they're important and is a very valuable platform for us, not in the same country.
Right.
Yeah, but we
crossing boundaries.
We can acquire knowledge from different ways.
Well, it's interesting too that you mentioned the TED Talks because many of the people who give TED Talks are hired by companies to come in and talk to their senior managers or whatever, and they charge them thousands of dollars to do this, and yet they're socially responsible because they'll go on and give an online talk for anybody for free in many cases.
Yes.
So that again, the internet, is the good news and the bad news. It helps. It certainly helps bridge some divides between haves and have-nots. Like an example where somebody can see a TED Talk for free, from somebody who's a major lecturer. But on the other hand, the internet has also, in some cases, widened the digital divide. And that is a big problem. If you look at the penetration of the internet and the numbers of people who have access to the internet personally themselves, there are many countries, including my own, where there's still a significant portion of the population who do not have that. And that is one of the most important roles for libraries, is to help people bridge the digital divide. Because it's those very people that need to know and have access to the internet, because that's how you apply for a job, or that's how you do your homework now. If you want to be a successful student, you have to be able to do research online. And if your family can't afford a connection or can't afford a computer, then how are you going to be successful? Well, you're going to go to your library.
Yeah, that's true. You mentioned your country just now, and I've noticed that before you work for the IFLA as the president, you have a long career at the U.S.
Library of Congress.
Yes. Would you share your personal experience in working in the library?
Yeah, I love the Library of Congress, which is why I stayed there for 45 years. I spent most of the time in the Congressional Research Service as a coordinator of information services for the Congress, and finally, when I left, I had a job that didn't exist when I first started working as a Deputy Chief Information Officer, and our director had wanted to change the information technology into the Office of Information Management and Technology. And so, and then I spent 5 years as the Director of Law Library Services. And the library is incredible because I always thought, when I started out in reference and research, and if I couldn't find something, even a clue in the Library of Congress, it was my fault, because it's the most extensive library in the world and has all these wonderful resources in it, and it still does. And then the other thing it has is wonderful people. The people who work there are amazing. They know so much. It's a privilege to be able to work with them, and I'm a great believer that you have to find joy in your job, And it's usually the people you work with that makes that possible. And the Library of Congress was wonderful for that. There were just wonderful people working there, and every day, wonderful people with interesting challenges, and no 2 days were ever alike, and that's what I liked about it.
Yeah. 45 years is a very long time. And I think it's a very important experience for your career, for your life. And I want to ask you another question.
Okay.
How many times have you been in China?
This is my 4th time.
4th time?
Yes. Yeah. My first time was a trip to a library conference in Guangzhou. And then I was invited to speak at a library conference that the Shanghai Public Library was convening, and had a lot of different people from different countries coming to it. So I went to Shanghai. And then right before this, I guess it was last fall sometime, I'm trying to remember exactly when this was, it came to the National Library Conference was in...
I'm sure you will have a fantastic trip here this time. And the last question, can you describe your ideal library in your mind?
It's the one that understands exactly what its community needs and works to provide those services, but is always thinking about how they can improve, is always thinking about what they can do next, is always thinking about how they can make their community, whether it's an academic community and their students and their faculty happier, or whether it's a public library and or whether it's a government library and making their decision makers happier, but always thinking about how can we keep improving, what do we need to do next, and what's going on in the world that I need to pay attention to. So it's not a picture of a physical place, it's my ideal library is people with a great attitude about how to provide service and how to keep improving.
Yeah, we never have the best. We should improve ourselves and do better.
I think this is the advice I'd like to leave for all librarians. When you get your degree, when you graduate from school, that is the beginning of your education.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful thing, but you have to realize that you're in a job that requires a lifelong learning, and if you enjoy that, then you will be very happy in this profession. But if you think you're done learning when you get your degree, you're not going to be a happy person.
合作、开放、共享、创新、发展是这次访谈的几个关键词。在与多纳希德女士的交谈当中，我感受到了图书馆人顺应时代变化的责任感和使命感。不管是图书馆资源的数字化呈现，还是图书馆线上课堂的开发，国际图联都与各国图书馆一道，始终致力于为公众提供平等的阅读体验，为公众提供高质量、高水准的知识信息服务。尽管面临挑战，依然求索前进。感谢大家的收看，我们下期再见。